So, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the hybrid mana rule change, which is fun. It gives me an opportunity to talk about other rules that I think are more important. Going last in Commander is a huge disadvantage. This is just a fact. I'm not going to indulge any other perspectives, because anytime this has been tracked in any sort of large scale, the exact same patterns have emerged. Player 1 sits at loosely a 30% win rate and Player 2 at loosely 20%. This is true in both Social Commander and CEDH, but becomes more pronounced in higher power levels. Ideally, the win rates would be 25% across the board, but we are far removed from that. This problem exists in all turn-based games. From chess to Pokemon to Magic, going first is an advantage. To combat this, many games have implemented rules to even the playing field. In Pokemon, the player going first can't attack or play a supporter, and in Magic they don't get to draw on their first turn. But chess takes a bit of a different approach. There, going first is just an advantage, with no accommodations made. And so, a common strategy for the player going second is to not play for a win, but rather for a draw. Now, in all of those examples, the disparity between the first and second player was about a 10% deviation from the ideal, 55% instead of 50. 10% is enough to be considered an issue in properly designed games. But in Commander, odds of the player going first winning are increased by 20% compared to the odds of the player going last. This is an enormous difference, and an effort should be made to alleviate it. I'm by no means the first to notice this problem. Lots of folks have made various attempts to fix it, and some of those solutions are quite popular. For example, and I'm sure you've heard this before, a common option is to give the player going last some amount of scrying. Often a sort of descending scry, where the second player gets a bit of one as well, and the third a bit more, and the fourth the most. This absolutely works. It will increase the win rate of the last player. But I still don't like it, because it focuses on fixing the symptoms rather than the cause. We're not just trying to increase the win rate of the last player. There are endless ways of accomplishing that. We could give them extra cards in hand, or increase their starting life total, or place a really scary looking dog right next to them that growls at the other players when they try to go for a win. All of this would undeniably alleviate the win rate disparity. And one of those solutions even includes a dog, and I'm always in favor of dog-based game design decisions. But is the problem a lack of scary-looking dogs? Is that what's causing our issue in the first place? I don't think so, and scrying falls into that same trap. In Commander, everybody starts with the same number of cards in hand, so there's no card or knowledge advantage to going first. Rather, the advantage comes from getting to act before any other player. Now, quantifying what that means exactly becomes difficult once we get into specifics, since different decks and players will use their initiative in various ways. One of my foundational goals in game design is to give players as much freedom as I can allow, which is why my designs always focus on minimalistic and simple rules, as that gives the players more space for personal interpretation. And that's why I avoid specifics as much as I can and instead focus on the abstract. We need a way to quantify the advantage of going first that applies to as many cards and decks as possible. And I think the cleanest way of doing that is by looking at lands and mana. There, we can very clearly see the actual difference between players. The player going first always has an extra mana over everybody else. Or another way of looking at it is that the player going last is always a mana down. We can even define players 2 and 3, who have an advantage of 2/3 and 1/3 a mana respectively. Given that, our solution should be focused on mana. The win rate disparity has always bothered me, and unfortunately I'm the kind of guy that just can't leave things alone. So, a couple of months ago I took matters into my own hands and started handing the player going last a treasure at the start of the game. This works great, because it gives that player the option to self-determine a single turn of the game where they are effectively going first. Many use this right away, either to ramp or get their commander out a turn earlier, but I've also seen the treasure survive until the last moments of a match. Importantly, in all scenarios, the agency lies with the player. They get to make the decision and reclaim the fortune they lost with their die roll. But I wasn't really happy with giving out a treasure, because treasures are game pieces with other meaning and synergies. I've played enough against Miracle Rogue to not want to hand out free coins. I started telling players that the treasure was synergyless, basically an emblem. But that was awkward because it's still a treasure, and is it a permanent or is it not? And now you have a bunch of the same physical object with different abilities, and so eventually I got myself a bunch of Pokemon cards, specifically Lucky Energies. I chose the Lucky Energy because it's cheap and widely available, so I could easily and affordably get a whole bunch of them. But also because I think it's got a nice, optimistic ring to it. Hey, you're going last! Lucky you! Here's your Lucky Energy. I often say that language matters, and this is a prime example of that. Getting a Lucky Energy really helps diminish the negative feeling that comes with going last. It's by no means a huge deal, as being last really shouldn't be a major moment of distress, but these small points of contact with the guided experience of the game still matter. Getting a token that describes you as lucky for going last just helps ease that experience a little bit. Using a Pokemon card also comes with the advantage of making it obvious that it doesn't synergize with any other card effects, because Pokemon cards don't synergize with Magic cards. That's actually been such a help at explaining this to people. When I used to give out treasures, I always had to kind of go through some hurdles to get people to understand what I was going for. As soon as I switched to the Lucky Energy, everybody got it instantly, which I thought was really interesting. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Would definitely appreciate that. And don't forget to check out the Patreon. Lots of bonus content on the Patreon. Link down below. Anyways, so I had my rule. The player going last starts the game with a Lucky Energy, a one-time use emblem that they can crack at any time to get a mana of any color, but it also doesn't have synergies with anything. This felt right, so I started handing them out like candy. Every single game I played, I explained that I would like to use the Lucky Energy rule and what that means. And when I say every game, I do mean every game, regardless of if I had played with the other folks at the table before or not. I expected a bit of a pushback, but never got any. Whether that be at the Uni's Magic Club, at our LGS, or at the Command Fest in Bonn, everybody was cool with it, and many players commented that they enjoyed playing with the rule. So I became bolder and started buying even more Lucky Energies and literally gave them to people for their own future games. And over time, the rules spread. I had a fun experience a little while ago, which I mentioned in a recent video, and the response I got to that is kind of the main reason why I'm making this video now. But anyways, not too long ago, I had this incredible moment where I sat down at a table to play with somebody I had never played with before, and I began explaining the Lucky Energy rule to them. But then they cut me off because they already knew what it was. Again, I had never played with this person before, ever. It was a really cool moment. It was really, really fun to me. Let me slow down a little bit though. I'm not claiming that everybody here plays with the Lucky Energy. And unfortunately, my experience of approaching Commander through a game design lens has been one of resistance, if not outright hostility. Commander players don't like it when their favorite format is questioned, so they fight back on any suggested changes. But that hasn't applied to the Lucky Energy. Players have been fine, sometimes actively happy about it. I think everybody instinctively understands that something should be done about the going last disadvantage. And the nice thing about the Lucky Energy rule is that it's additive. It doesn't take anything away or modify anything existing. It also isn't complicated, which is very important when we're adding a rule. I expect that I am, as always, going to encounter some resistance to the next statement I'm about to say, but starting the game by scrying would place an undesirable burden on players. Commander is usually a game about complexity escalation. Front-loading too much of it would disrupt the natural flow and rhythm of the game. Let me be clear here. I am saying that scrying is complicated, but it is not so complicated that people can't handle it. Rather, the problem comes in that the moment of this complexity kind of happens a bit too early if it happens before the game has even started. It also doesn't necessarily have to constitute an advantage. If we allow a small scry, then we might just want to keep the top card. And now we're still just going last with a mana disadvantage. And if we do a big one, then I think we're taking some excitement out of the game by knowing what our next couple of draws are going to be. Drawing cards is fun, but usually less so if we already know the result. I'm bringing up scrying again because I think there's a valid argument to be made that the rule implementation here could add a card or knowledge disadvantage to the early positions that we then use to compensate for the later positions, in the same way that regular Magic does it. Scrying in particular has the advantage that it's easily divisible, in a way that the lucky energy isn't. And that matters because of what a lot of you will already have written in the comments before watching the entire video. The lucky energy rule just creates a new fourth player. Now whoever's going third has the disadvantages that the fourth player previously had. This is an intuitive criticism, but I think it focuses too much on finding a new problem where we don't yet know that one exists. Statistically, players 2 and 3 are actually pretty close to our desired 25% win rate. They don't need help, which means we can focus our attention on only the problem at hand, the player going last. While there definitely is a chance that the lucky energy doesn't impact player 1's win rate in the way we want to, and rather siphons percentages off of players 2 and 3, that's the kind of hypothesis that requires playtesting. It's a reasonable suspicion to have, but we shouldn't use it to rule out a solution that works so well in every other regard. Game design only rarely gives us the perfect fix. Most of the time we have to settle on the one with the least problems. From my experience with the lucky energy, players 2 and 3 are fine. They are not really disadvantaged. And in my personal data tracking, player 3 has actually been winning the most games. Although I haven't gathered enough data to call this any kind of actual statistic. It's still interesting though. Riot's recent release, Riftbound, also has a 4-player free-for-all mode, and their solution to the going last problem is honestly quite harsh. The player going first draws one less card and doesn't get to add one of their battlefields to the pool, and the player going last gets an extra mana to start the game with. Although this mana is essentially a half mana when viewed through a Magic perspective, but still, it is a permanent mana advantage for the rest of the game. What's interesting for our purposes is that Riot doesn't differentiate between players 2 and 3, which lends more credibility to the idea that those positions don't need additional consideration. You know what really surprises me though? Is that CEDH doesn't have a rule for this yet. I have seen reports of CEDH tournaments where the player going first had a win rate of nearly 40%. That's insane. There was a Dota International one time where one side of the map had like an 8% advantage over the other, and that was considered a huge problem and immediately addressed. It's wild to me that a self-described competitive scene would just accept that, realistically, a huge portion of each match is decided by the die roll. I think the lucky energy rule is a great fix to the player going last disadvantage in Commander. It's an easy to implement addition to the current rule set because all it needs is some kind of unique token. I use a lucky energy, but you could really pick whatever you want. If Wizards want to get in on this, they could easily just include a lucky last token in precons and other Commander products. It's also an intuitive rule, because it's immediately clear why it helps, and other games have already used similar solutions. Best of all, it's trivially easy to test. Any of you listening right now can give it a try whenever you want. And that's really important because, after all, the most crucial part of game development is playtesting. There's still one question we have to answer though. What about different player numbers? Well, for 3-player games, I give it to the 3rd player, and in 5-player matches, both 4 and 5 get a lucky energy. At the end of the day, this is just how I like to handle it. There are lots of different ways this problem could be tackled. This is just my idea. The lucky energy is simply one of the many possible solutions, although I do like it, and it does work. But ultimately, I mostly just think something should be done. And when we do it, we should keep in mind that games are complex accumulations of systems. Implementing solutions that might fix the problem but don't address the actual cause will inevitably make future issues much more difficult to handle, as we don't have a proper understanding of what might be causing them. So in my opinion, any solution should be a mana-based solution. Anyways, a video about game design. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You want the lucky energy? I've got so many of these. I wasn't lying when I said I have a lot of them. Although I used to have a lot more, because again, I just hand these out. I just give these to people. Anytime I see somebody likes the lucky energy rule, I'm just like, you want some? You want some lucky energies? I got so many of these. I got so many lucky energies. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to support me directly on Patreon. That would be appreciated. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.